Hello and welcome back to the Holiday Report. So it's been over a year now since I last uploaded content, and I want to apologise. I didn't quite know for sure, where this channel would go and what I would do with it. And recently, YouTube has rolled out a feature which allows to do podcasts. So my decision is to transform this channel into a podcast about aviation trip reports. So without further ado, let's start with our first story. Well, our next story, but our first story in this new chapter. So come along and follow me as I travel to Hamburg via Italy and ITA Airlines. So ITA or ITA, depending on how you want to pronounce it. Let's go. Our journey begins at Terminal 2 in Paris's secondary airport, Orly. So in this particular flight, I have upgraded to a business class ticket using my miles. This meant that I got access to what was supposed to be the flagship lounge of the French national carrier Air France, because, until very recently, ITA is still part of the SkyTeam Alliance, so I got access to that. The lounge itself was quite nice. I mean, it wasn't too big, but it was big enough for the amount of domestic and, intra-European traffic it would see. The only disappointment was the only breakfast options. Croissants, jam, and coffee, and some juices. When you compare that to the other domestic lounge, which is in Terminal 2F in Paris, you'd have more choice. You'd have yogurts, you'd have jam, you'd have bread, you'd have pain au chocolat. All of this was kind of missing in the lounge. That was a bit of a disappointment, but I didn't stay too long. I stayed about an hour and a half until I was called for boarding. So our aircraft for that first leg, so Paris to Milan Linate, was an A319. A rather old aircraft, about 20 years old, and the seats inside were indeed starting to show their age. They were leather seats, so they were quite comfortable, but you could see there was some general wear and tear about, everywhere along the seat. But that was fine for the kind of flight I was going to do, so just under an hour and a half, a very comfortable flight. We started rolling about 20 minutes delay, but that was okay. Just after takeoff, we were offered some kind of tray with different kind of little sandwiches. That was quite nice. A ham sandwich, a little bit of cheese sandwich, and a coffee, which was quite nice, although it was filter coffee. The flight itself was kind of uneventful, and we arrived at Milan on time, so we recuperated those 20 minutes. Arriving in Milan, I went to the ITA lounge over there, which is Plaza de something. I can't remember the Italian word, but each and every ITA lounge in Italy is themed after the main square of the city where it's located. So here it was the main square of Milan, but I forgot the name. And looking at the one in Rome, it's the most famous square, so Plaza de Spagna. It's also very nice. The difference between Plaza de Spagna and this one in Milan is it's a bit scaled down. Of course, you will still have a barista that will make, fresh handmade coffee the Italian way, which I had. I had 2 of them. It was very nice. And later on, around 11, because I had a 3-hour layover, I had a handmade Aperol Spritz, something which is, from northern Italy. And with, you could taste the oranges, even though it was the industrial Aperol. You could still feel it was fresh. So that was quite nice. They had little bits and bobs, some Italian pastries, which I had, a bit of Italian ham, which was very nice. Really enough to relax. The internet connection was also very stable. One of the most stable ones I had actually in a lounge so far. So that was enough to get some work done. And very quickly it was time to board our second flight on the way to Hamburg. Now, on my other show, which is Aviation Insights, which you can see on different podcast platforms like Spotify, like Apple, I discussed in a dedicated episode why I was going to Hamburg. So if you want to have a look, feel free to look up the thing. But basically, it was an event around aircraft seating, and that was quite interesting. But anyway, getting there, I had to go via Milan. So, we boarded the plane and everything. So we were on time. It was quite enjoyable. And much like the other flight, we took off. And as we reached cruising altitude, we were given the meal. And this is where something kind of weird happened. So I didn't particularly order any vegetarian meal. I don't really eat vegetarian stuff. But I was given a vegetarian meal, and it turns out that something in IT went wrong and flagged me as a special meal vegetarian. So the advantage on that leg is I got to try the same meal I had on the way to Milan, again, because obviously I wanted it corrected, but I also got to try the vegetarian meal, which was different breads with different kind of like spreads with artichoke or olives. Of course, olives being, one of the main staples of Italy. So it was very tasty. The only disappointment was, of course, since in the vegetarian meal, it's vegetarian/vegan, you didn't get any bread, and, you got the kind of, how can I explain that? The kind of creamer for the coffee, which I don't particularly like. But other than that, it was a pretty decent breakfast. ITA, actually, or ITA, or ITA, however you want to pronounce it, is actually rather unique for that. I mean, a lot of the other European airlines, they will serve you, a bit of salmon or a bit of trout, and some bits of quinoa or something. It resembles a hot meal, but in reality, it's cold. But it's not, in my experience at least, very much representative of the country that the airline represents. ITA was different. ITA, even though it was simple little sandwich tasters, each one of them was distinctly Italian with, some tomato or some olives or, some olive oil you can dip some bread into. The dessert was some kind of Streusel, which is German, but it's also kind of from the region which borders with Austria. So it was very Italian, something which I was very impressed for. Now, I don't know what the full price of the ticket is. It must be somewhere around 400 to 500 euros. Would I actually spend that on an airline? I'm not 100% sure. In Europe in general, it's, they call it business, but in reality, it's not really business class. It's more of a premium economy product. Granted, you get access to the lounge, you get priority boarding. When it's international, you get priority border control. But is it really worth the money you're going to spend? Maybe not. I would probably spend 100 euros more than my economic ticket to upgrade. Some airlines do that. Air France regularly offers upgrades for 99 euros, which is completely acceptable. Would I go out of my way to pay full fare? No, and most people don't. Most people use it as a connection onto other long-haul services. So more as a continuation of their long-haul experience, and it's included in the total fare. That makes sense. As a separate entity, not 100% sure. But definitely do try ITA before they become part of the Lufthansa group, as is rumoured, especially if you are, Flying Blue or Delta Sky Miles or, other Sky Team frequent flyer numbers, because you can get points and you can get XPs, obviously not on upgrades, not on and not on reward flights, but definitely worth trying whilst it's still in the SkyTeam catalogue, as this is still in question whether it will stay or not. Very representative of Italy, very friendly crew. Do try the airline. If you have the means, do try business class. I believe it's one of the most unique carriers in Europe, and it deserves a try. Speaking of unique carriers or popular carriers, I'm going to go to Indonesia next week, so my next episode will be from Indonesia. I'll try a few airlines, one of which being Emirates, but that's reserved for my aviation insights. I will also fly with AirAsia X and a local airline run by Lion Air. All of this will be done exclusively to this show, plus maybe a hotel review if I feel like it. So stay tuned, and in the meantime, stay safe and happy travels. This was the Holiday Report. I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.